Hey Real World Climbers, it's me Josh, and we're back with another episode of the expansion of Real World Climbing Headquarters Part 5. So we are now on the phase of starting to do our 30-degree wall, the main feature of this build. And so we're going to get started on that. I want to make sure that it's pretty much exactly on 30 degrees. So I have some ideas on how I'm going to accomplish that. So in order to do that, I'm actually going to lay out the framework of this back wall right here at the 30 degrees, which that is currently just a mock-up and it's not 30 degrees. But I'm going to lay that out and actually attach that because that's going to attach right into that sidewall. And then I'm going to build my kicker down here at where it lines up. And then I'm literally just going to draw a line at the top of my kicker to the bottom of this wall, and that way I'll know how to cut all the boards. So I'm going to use this as my mock-up for 30 degrees. So I'm hoping I explained that okay, but basically I'm going to mock this one up at 30 degrees and then build my kicker to draw my line so it's exact, and then I'll match all the other studs with this one. I do have this 2x4 that's 12 feet wide that goes across the entire width of my garage, and so that's actually going to be helping with stability as well, and so that's just going to be kind of like a threshold to go over. So that's in place, kind of. Again, it's not exactly where I need it to be, but I've at least got it in the right length. So here's how we're going to do this. I've got the angle finder taped to the back side of this stud, and then I'm going to go up here, and right about there is my marking for where the corner of this board is going to start. That's going to be uniform across all these, so that's the starting point. I'm going to put one screw in it so it will work like a hinge, and then we're going to view this at 30 degrees, and then we'll put more screws in, and that should make sure that we're at exactly 30 degrees. Okay, just make sure I hit the mark. Yep, hit the mark.
Sure. Yes, yes.
Okay, hold it right there. Don't move it. Push this way. Push hard this way. Okay, it's right on 30 degrees. Here we go. Gavin's helping. Alright, so now in order to find out where I need to cut off that board that is now officially at 30 degrees, where to cut it off at the foot of it, what I'm going to do is I'm building a mock-up of my kickboard. So obviously my kickboard is going to be 8 feet wide and things like that, but my kickboard is going to be the 2x4, this long 12-footer here, and then I'm going to have 2x6s like this stacked this way, and then the wall is going to rest on top of this here. So I'm going to just build this as a mock-up, and then I'm going to slide it over next to here and draw a line, and that should be where I need to cut it off at. And actually, now that I think of it, I don't even have to have it be double wide because I just need to get this line here. So there we go. That's going to be the height of my kicker. This will be the front face. It'll go up that way. So we're going to draw our line that way. So just set the miter saw at the 30 degrees. Cut it off at my line there. Then I'm going to go grab the other 4, and I'm going to use this as a template and cut them all the same lengths. Alright, so now we're doing the real thing here for building the kicker. So I got my... They're not the same length! You gotta be kidding me! Look at this!
I told you.
I bought these at the lumber store. And they're not the same length. Which one's right and which one's wrong? It's gonna work out. I know I'm freaking out a little bit and kind of whatever, but it's gonna be just fine. Just to let you know. So this is why I have trust issues. Bought these off the same rack. That one is shy of 8 feet by several inches. And this one is 3/8 inches longer than 8 feet. Again, I'm not freaking out because it's totally workable in this situation. The one that is longer happens to be the better quality one, and that's going to be my front facing piece of the board. And the one that's behind is mainly just for stability, so it doesn't have to be the full length, and it's gonna be okay. All right, so that being said, I've got the 2x6s here, and I'm gonna put this 2x12 on top and then flip it over when I'm done, so that it's just easier to screw down through the bottom. Now for the flipping over, ready? Okay, slide it over. Alright, now we got a kickboard. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna secure this end over here with a bracket of some sort. That's gonna look pretty sweet. And then the framing is gonna literally just sit on top of there. Boom, boom, boom. So now kind of the moment of truth is gonna be taking the studs that I cut earlier, putting them in place, and seeing if it fits. Yeah, there was a slight miscalculation. So I want this board to be actually like right up against this piece of plywood. That's where I measured 8 feet from. And so that being said, that means I need to attach this first board on the outside of my kicker plate, which should be just fine. But that does mean that I probably need to adjust the lengths of the other 4 boards. So that's kind of annoying. And the fact that this is going to attach on the outside and it's not quite resting right on top like the others will is still going to be okay, because this is going to have the most connections to the wall, to the adjacent wall, than any of the other ones. And so with that, it'll be very, very secure, and that bottom will be less important. But all the other ones I'm going to want to be resting on here so that all the weight comes down into the floor, or most of the weight comes down into the floor. So I'm okay with making this adjustment. And if you haven't watched any of my other build videos, then you probably haven't heard this yet, but if you have, we'll just reiterate it, that that's how this building process works. You just have to figure out solutions sometimes, especially when it comes to garages where the shapes are slightly different, is that it's not going to probably be exactly how you drew it out on graph paper. Your graph paper helps you, but then you make adjustments as you go. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to get this back to 30 degrees. 30, exactly. There we go. All right. So now I've got that 30-degree one in first of those studs, and it's pretty darn secure. Down here, I just toenailed it in on both sides for the bottom, but it's directly tied into this existing wall. So, I mean, should be the most secure out of all of them. And I got the kicker in place. The one other thing I want to do to make sure that the kicker doesn't flex, like you see a little bit of that flexing happening right now, is in several places I'm going to tie it in from here all the way up into the joist work. So I have these nice long 12-footers that were some scrap wood that I inherited from a friend, and so in order to recycle them, I'm going to use this as some of that additional structure. Alright, so a couple small little adjustments there, and it is on 30 degrees. So I'm going to take that down, and I'm going to again use that as a template for the remaining, and then we're going to install it and start installing studs. So that's the most important one, is to make sure that it's exactly 8 feet wide, and it is. So now you can see that'll be the outer edge of that 30-degree wall. So this is the real entrance here. So it's kind of skinny here, but at head height it's still a good 3 feet high, 3 feet wide. So that will be the entrance into the climbing room. So 3 more studs to go. that's what I'm going to do for tonight. It's starting to get dark and it's starting to rain, and I'm kind of confined into the garage, so I'm going to do more tomorrow, which will still be in this video. So here we go. Alright, we're back at it, and we've pulled out the 2 new sheets of plywood here, and we selected which one is going to be my top, which is the 6 feet wide, and we selected which one is going to be the bottom. So this one here is going to be the top half, and so I marked off at 6 feet where we're going to cut that off. I'm likely going to reuse this here in a different section, which I think will fit almost perfectly, so that's going to be great. So let's go ahead and get started with the circular saw, cutting this down to size. Now for the main pieces of plywood for the 30 degrees, those are the only cut I actually have to make. So what we're going to do next is we're going to stack them on top of each other, but I'm going to put the longer one on top, and then we're going to draw out a grid system, and the grid system is going to go only on the top one, and I'll just drill through both sheets of plywood at the same time. And then we're going to C-clamp them together so that they're exactly lined up. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw along my edges my measurements for the grid. I'll have a main grid and an in-between grid, and I'm going to use different color markers for that. So my main grid is going to start 4 inches from each edge, but then 8 inches in between. And then the in-between grid is going to be 8 inches from each edge and 8 inches in between. Then the same thing along the short sides. And then I'll use red for my secondary grid. Just repeat the process. Now I don't particularly want to have the grids in marker on this wood. I kind of want to go with the pure wood look. I don't plan on painting it or anything like that. And so I don't mind these little tick marks here every once in a while, but I don't want to draw the full lines everywhere. And so I'm going to take a length of 2x4, and I'm going to mark it at the same intervals. And then I'm going to take it and I'm going to just line it up at each of these marks, you know, horizontally and vertically, to get my different intersections, so that way I'll just mark a little X, and then I will have where I'm going to drill down without having lines that go in between my holes. Hopefully that makes sense, but I'll show you too. And now we drill a bunch of holes. Here we go. Alright, so I'm going to try and keep it really nice and perpendicular, nice and straight, and pushing down. You'll see that I have it raised up by 3.5 inches. Yeah, I just put some 2x4s on those ends, so that's way, so I don't puncture all the way into the cement and wreck my bit, and keep it nice and sharp. So just gonna hit the grid points straight down, and there's 250 something holes here. So I forgot to hit record on us throwing up that first piece of plywood, but it went up pretty good. Oh, we forgot the drill. elbow against the wall. Now we're going to get the strip of plywood that goes across there. I'm going to cut the bottom at an angle so that it sits flush with the kickboard. And then we're going to repeat this grid pattern on it as well. And then the kickboard will be for screw-on holes.
Oh, it's on the cooler?
We just installed this bracing from here and here, and then we'll put a sheet of plywood up here as well, underneath the campus board. So we fitted that last piece, made sure it fit before we put all the T-nuts in, but that's going to go underneath the campus board. And this is where we decided to put the volume. I think it'll work out nice there. So that looks like a wrap of this video, the build of the 30-degree wall and expansion. I do encourage you to keep an eye out for the next video, where I will be doing a lot of the peripherals, the things that got me permission to build this wall in the first place. The first one of which will be some shelving, and also my whole point was I needed a spot for my hangboard, so I'm going to install a hangboard here, as well as some other peripherals. So thanks so much, and if you are getting value out of these videos, I encourage you to clip the chains on the subscribe button. See you guys real soon.